everybody. Welcome back to Baxter County Roundtable. Tonight is our 13th episode. We're hopefully making some improvements here. Tonight we have, well, first, my name is Joe Bryant. I am the host. Russ Gillis is the co-host, I guess. If he wants me to host, he can be. And tonight we have a couple interesting guests, Matt Stone to my right and Jack Randall to my left. And the subject matter for tonight's conversation is going to be partisan elections, pros and cons. So hopefully we'll have an interesting conversation. First, I'm going to introduce our panel, which Jack Randall, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And
yeah, I recently became the second vice chair of BCRC. My wife and I moved here from Colorado about 4 years ago, and I'm trying to get a little more involved. I've always been a history nut and interested in government and how things work, and I thought in a smaller town I might be able to have some influence there, so we're trying to do that right now.
we're glad to have you tonight. And our other guest is Matt Stone. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sir, Joe. I'm an attorney here in Mountain Home. I've been practicing for about 25 years. I graduated from Mountain Home High School in 1990, where I was a founding member of the Teenage Republicans, just from my provenance there.
I did not know that.
I hold an AB bachelor's degree in political science from Washington University in St. Louis, now known as WashU. It's ranked 21st in the nation. And I also hold a JD, Juris Doctor Law degree from the same institution, now known as WashU, and they are ranked 14th in the nation.
I don't want to go too far off the reservation here, but WashU's a pretty liberal university, isn't it? So how did you get out of there being a conservative?
I was the beneficiary of a good upbringing by my parents in a Pentecostal church, good Christian fundamentals that have served me well. Even though I may not do that kind of religion now, I'm more non-denominational. It just gave me a good foundation that always stuck with me.
Well, that sounds good to me. Okay, well, tonight it's partisan elections versus nonpartisan. I'm going to just try to mediate this and keep my opinions out of it, but that's going to be difficult. Jack, do you want to go first and pick a side, or?
Well, I think what we're trying to do here is just kind of introduce the topic for people to see both sides, and if this goes where we might be headed, we'll be going around trying to get people to sign petitions. So get people thinking about first of all, what it is. What is a partisan election, and what is a nonpartisan election, and how does that affect people in Baxter County?
Can you tell us what nonpartisan versus partisan is in your mind? Or?
My perspective would be that when they run for election, they've got a D or an R or independent in front of their name. Nonpartisan, they do not have to declare.
And Matt, do you concur on that? Or do you have anything to add?
I like to quote the Nature Boy Ric Flair, a famous professional wrestler. He says, "What's causing all this?" And the reason I think we're talking about this now is what's happened in Paragould. I'm from Jonesboro originally, so I'm a Northeast Arkansas person. I got here as soon as I could. Praise God. Thank God. Glad to be here. That was the late mid-'80s. But in Paragould, they decided to have partisan elections at the city or municipal level. And so that's part of the reason this is a topic that's coming to the round table this week. An important thing I would note, a partisan election does not require you to be any particular party. The candidate has the choice and is empowered to be a Democrat, a Republican, a Green, a Communist, anything they want to do, or an independent. You know, if they have the choice to affiliate with a party or not. So it doesn't force political party membership or association on any candidate.
Now, how long have they been doing this in Jonesboro? The part they've been
It's actually Paragould.
Paragould, okay,
I was born and raised in Jonesboro, but
Paragould.
Paragould and Jonesboro are growing closely together. It's hard to tell where one stops and one ends now. But, not very long. Just 2, 3, 4 years at the most.
I think it was 2.5 years ago.
So, in your mind, do you think it's possible to tell if there's a benefit or a non-benefit to that setup?
I think it's probably a little bit early at this point, at least for Paragould. You know, the sample size is only a couple of years, so it'd probably take a little bit longer to really determine was there a benefit or not.
Okay, does anybody care to speak on, the benefits, potential benefits, or
Well,
negative?
let me just say a couple of things here. First of all, you know, when you run as a partisan, generally speaking, people understand what a political party actually stands for. You know, traditionally, the Republicans have been much more conservative, and the Democrats have been more social and financial, liberal. Here in Arkansas, after back several years ago, Winthrop Rockefeller pushed the Republican Party to the forefront, and it's been growing ever since. And that being said, in many places, and I'll say most places in Arkansas now, Republicans pretty much hold all the major offices. Both of our senators, all 4 of our congressmen, the Senate, the governor, and all the
They call that a supermajority.
constitutional officers are all Republican, and that is a supermajority. You take that, compare it to California. California is exactly opposite. Every single, they have a supermajority in both state houses and the governor. So it gives you a pretty good idea for comparison wise, you know, look at California and how liberal it is versus how conservative Arkansas, and those are good judges, you know, what political parties stand for. Nonpartisan, on the other hand, was originally started pushing, the push for nonpartisan was back around the turn of the century, 20th century, based on the Tammany Hall in New York and the corruption that was prevalent up there. And they began to try to distance themselves from the political machines, if you will, of that day. And it's been growing ever since. I'd like to let Matt talk a little bit more about political parties. I think he's got some really good comments on what is a political party, and Matt, if you would.
Thank you, Russ. Yes, sir. Political parties are just made up of your neighbors and people like you and me and the fellow sitting here at the table and everybody that you see passing in the street. It's local, you know, it's local folks. And all we're trying to do as a political party is organize with like-minded people to try to legitimately exercise influence on your government. And that's all a political party is. It's just people enjoying our right to assemble and to get together and politic together and caucus together. Because there were times, you know, when we were, say, a British colony, that wasn't allowed. And now, thank God, we're able to do that. And that's all a political party is. There are assumed perceptions of corruption or undue influence, but that's to some extent a vilification, an unnecessary and untrue vilification of political parties.
I think when you describe today's Democrat Party too, you have to, I mean, believe what you want to believe, but you need to include radical on the left, you know, maybe that applies to a certain section on the right as well, but
the political parties,
I'm kind of partisan, so,
political parties as a general rule, like Matt just said, they're made up of your neighbors. Well, most all of us are a little bit more liberal than our parents or our grandparents or what have you. I was talking to a gentleman before I left California several years ago, and I was telling him, yeah, I guess I've gotten more conservative in my old age. And he says, no, you haven't changed. The Republican Party just moved further and further to the left. But he said the Democrats have gone way to the left, and it just seems like you have gotten more conservative. But it's all comparatively speaking, because both parties actually have moved further to the left. I think, quite frankly, JFK would probably be a Republican now, simply because the liberals have taken over, the extreme liberals, quite frankly, the Democrat Socialist Party has taken over a huge part of the Democrat Party.
yeah, and I think in some areas, Arkansas specifically, since we're here, I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, they were raised as Democrats, so they think by birthright, they have to be a Democrat. So there's that part of it. Do you have any comment on that, Jack?
Well, I think the viewers need to realize that we are the Baxter County Republican Committee, and so we're gonna have a certain viewpoint, and we're very mostly conservative. But I think we need to bring this discussion to Mountain Home. What is this about in Mountain Home? So I think we're talking about basically city government, right? Because you have judges, you have the Baxter County, you have the Quorum Court, you have the JPs, and as far as I know, those are all partisan. But I think we're talking, for example, the mayor, the city council, and officers of our city.
So they're all nonpartisan?
I'm asking, is that correct?
The city administration and school board are all nonpartisan, and have been for a good while. I don't know how long, but.
Does anybody have an argument as to why they do that?
Well,
Or
I think
an
that's just,
explanation?
I don't.
There are lots of reasons that might favor having nonpartisan elections. It might help to simplify the process by not having political parties involved. I'm not saying I agree with that, that's just a reason that's given. You can maybe make it less financially extravagant by taking political party money out of the equation. I'd note that also might tend to disenfranchise some folks when you're not allowed to try to have influence,
The screen brightness.
There's
I think
there are issues that a lot of folks think, well, these partisan issues don't touch municipal or city matters. And I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, Tip O'Neill said all politics is local.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
And what that means is the most important motivations directing voters are rooted in local concerns. So that's why Tip said, famous Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, said all politics is local. I think he wrote a book by that name in the 80s.
well, the things that affect you the most on a day-to-day basis, when you go shopping here in Mountain Home, the people in Washington don't set the sales tax. That's done right here, in the state.
Right.
So they don't pass the regulations as to, what you can build, what you can't build, and all the other local regulations. Those things that happen that affect you the most on a day-to-day basis right here in Baxter County, Mountain Home, come from the local government, period.
Right.
That is the most impactful. Plus, that is where you can have the most influence. You wait for 4 years to vote for president, you go in, you cast your vote, and you're done for another 4 years. The same thing for senators. Now, a congressman's every 2 years. But, if you really want to make a difference, you get involved at the local level. Arkansas traditionally has less than or right around 50% voter turnout. I think the 2024 election was 52.4% or something right around that.
I'll know that might be on a good day.
And that was,
It's been a lot lower a lot of times.
it has, and that
In Baxter
was,
County.
exactly, that was simply because President Trump, you know, the other part of the nonpartisan elections is, traditionally, nonpartisan elections have very low turnout compared to partisan elections. It's difficult for people to research and find out about nonpartisan candidates. All they can obtain is through your local, primarily because we're talking local, through your local media. Here in Baxter County, that'd be Mountain Home Observer, Baxter Bulletin, KTLO, and various other outlets. That being said, you know, are they being straight up, or are they just, you know, being nice to the guy, the person? Does the person tell you what they really believe, what their stance is on all the different issues? You don't really get that. When you have partisan elections, at least from a Democrats and Republican standpoint, you know what the parties in general somewhat stand for.
You can get, it's another way to gauge.
Exactly, it's
the
another
candidate.
gauge that you can say, okay, well, this guy's a Republican, so I would think that he at least espouses to the more conservative viewpoints, or vice versa for a liberal or a Democrat, or whatever. But
It's,
you know,
it's
just,
not perfect, but
it's not perfect, but it
it's
is
helpful.
a gauge that is available.
It can tend to add to transparency, which is so important these days. That's such a buzzword, but it's a desirable thing in all levels of government.
Yeah.
And even in selecting who's gonna govern. You know, it's transparent that we can see what is this person's affiliations, what does this person believe, and to what platform
Right.
does he or she subscribe and follow. And also, there's another angle to that about what Russ was talking about, and that's accountability in partisan elections. When you may have to answer to the party that you want to run under that supports you and maybe funds you, you know, that's another level of accountability for the government to answer to a group of citizens that happen to be a political party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're running as a nonpartisan, you don't have that party affiliation, where do you go fundraise? You know, I mean, you don't have the political party that's backing you financially, so you have to go on your own and get your own financial backing. Well, depending on what you're running for and where you're at, you know, you're gonna go probably to people that you know, and people that are pretty well off, that can back your campaign. That may be a fairly small number of people that have backed a political candidate. Now, if it's only a few people, is that candidate now beholden to that very small group of people? You know, if you got a political party backing you, you know, that could be several hundred people that have bankrolled basically your campaign. So it's a little bit more difficult to be influenced by just a very small group of people.
Yeah, and to me, the transparency issue is number one.
Huge.
We're lacking
That's
in
what
that.
people want.
We're lacking big time.
I had not given this subject a lot of thought before, but I dug into it this week, and I find that there are a dozen states that have active legislation right now having to do with partisan elections. I think we should maybe get into the pros and cons, and I did that today, and there are some on each side, but I think, at least from our perspective, that there are a lot more advantages to partisan elections, and I could list off 5 of them right now.
I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, one is, think about straight ticket voters. I don't believe in it personally, but if they go to vote and they got that ballot on the screen and they don't know anybody, they're gonna have a tendency, if there's an R in front of their name, to vote for them. Now, that doesn't mean that's a good person necessarily, but they're probably gonna vote for the R if they're a Republican. It's already been mentioned, nonpartisan elections have lower voter turnout. Again, we're the BCRC, Baxter County Republican Committee, and partisan elections allow us to endorse a candidate and to help fund their candidacy. Candidates declaring party affiliation gives the voter a clue, we've kind of mentioned this already, of where is that person coming from. I mean, I look at our school board, I look at our city council, I have no idea. I've gone to both of them, I listened to them, I have no idea what that person really believes. And then I believe that partisan elections are more competitive and more transparent.
Gentlemen, what do you think would be the effect in voter engagement and voter excitement if there is a move to partisan elections?
That would really be difficult. That'd be difficult to
Do you
say.
think it could increase turnout? Would it tend to increase turnout or not affect it?
Well, I think, as a general rule, statistics show that nonpartisan elections have a very low turnout, comparatively speaking. Now, one of the things that we intend to do at the Baxter County Fair coming up here in just a few weeks is each year, you know, we have a booth there, and each year we ask a question to people coming through. This is going to be at least one of the questions that we ask, and we're going to take a straw poll to see whether people in this area believe that they should, which one they prefer, partisan or nonpartisan. So we'll get a gauge on that.
I see this as an education process. I've knocked on doors helping a candidate get elected. I've had a constitution class where people come, and I find that people really do not understand how the government in their county and their city is set up. You get questions, what's the quorum court? What's a JP? They don't know. So if you bring a question to them, what do you think about partisan versus nonpartisan? I'm pretty politically involved, and I had to go, what are we talking about?
Know exactly what you mean. Last year's question was simply this. Do you believe, originally we asked, should Arkansas have closed primaries?
Yeah.
Nobody knew what a closed primary was, so we changed it. And we said, should Democrats be allowed to vote in Republicans' primaries? Oh, no way. And it was overwhelmingly no.
Right, exactly.
So that we'll have to work on the wording on this, so that it's self-explanatory, but that's the gist of what we're going to ask.
Moving from Colorado, I couldn't believe it the first time I voted here. I'm standing in line at the courthouse and I see this sign that you can vote for either one, but you can't do both. I'm like, what? I've never heard of such things. So that was new to me.
I think the citizenry probably would be more excited for changing to partisan elections, but I think the politicians would be excited about fighting it. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? And why would the politicians be more apt to want to keep it?
Well, the political scientist in me says it would probably increase turnout. I think it would increase voter engagement, and even through the political party and at the party level, and it would make it more exciting.
Yeah.
To voters and just more interesting. And also, there's increased identification. With if you're a Republican and you've got an election and someone's got an R by their name, there's a beginning of an affiliation there already.
Right.
So-
But
And I think
the
it's-
reason we have nonpartisan now, more than likely, is because the politicians wanted that. I don't know that to be the case 100%, but I suspect
That's a good
Let,
question.
let me
right there.
let me give you a statistic. 22 out of the 30 largest cities in the United States are nonpartisan. Nonpartisan.
for the city election.
Now, let that sink in for just a little bit. Chicago holds nonpartisan elections, yet every single council member, alderman they called them, every single one of them is a Democrat. The mayor is a Democrat. Do you really think it makes any difference in the long run? The thing about it is I think it's very, very naive for anyone to think that just simply by saying this is nonpartisan, we're taking the politics out of it. Okay, did you run that person through a degaussing machine and wipe all the political thoughts out of their head before they were elected? Because I'll guarantee you, if they turn the TV on or they read a newspaper or anything else, they still have political thoughts in their head.
If they're running for an office, they're
They're
political.
a politician.
Well, and the same applies to judges, and for some reason, judges get special treatment when during conversations.
Because they're supposed to be nonpartisan.
They're supposed to be.
They're
Well,
supposed to be.
Guys, I have probably more insight on this than anyone else on our distinguished panel. Judicial candidates have to avoid an appearance of impropriety, not just impropriety, but even an appearance of it. They have to maintain neutrality and not tip off how they might decide an important issue. So I can see them having to be sectioned off and protected from direct political questions.
I kind of tend to agree with that, but I also,
It could disqualify them if they give an answer to something and that they need to sit on a case.
Yeah.
They could be disqualified.
Yeah.
And they'd be embarrassing,
Yeah, okay.
and it slows down justice. But interestingly enough, just for comparison purposes, all of these judicial elections in Arkansas are nonpartisan.
And
Yeah,
and in most other states as well.
I just think it's it could be sort of a way to separate the non-Constitution believers from.
Those are fair game questions,
Yes.
Joe. They can ask those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
What you hear a lot from conservative candidates are, I support the Constitution, I'm an originalist, a textualist, whatever, they might be able to say I belong to the Federalist Society, just things like that. They'll say I favor, I think the Constitution says what it says, means what it says. They don't view it as a living document. Some people say those are dog whistles or coded messages, or whatever. But there are answers that can be given properly, know.
Yeah, I kind
So
of
that
understand
people know.
that.
And we see that on the national level a lot when judges are being, vetted in Congress. We see that a lot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we see a lot of them that that everyone knows they're very liberal and subject to I don't know, I won't say being bought, but people have found out that if they go judge shopping, they can always find the right liberal to give them the decision that they want. Not saying it won't be overturned down the road, but at least
I think it's fair to say that there have been fewer such appointments.
No, I'm not saying there's not, but I mean,
recent years.
Judge Borsberg and some of them back on the East Coast there, but anyway, the thing about it is I just, like I say, 22 of the 30 largest cities in the United States have nonpartisan elections. Los Angeles,
And
Chicago.
most of them are liberal and woke, to cut to the chase.
Exactly.
I think.
As a matter of fact, out of the top 30, there's 2 Republicans, 1 independent, and 1 libertarian, or two libertarians out of the top 30. all the rest are Democrats. So, it doesn't really, some of the research I found showed that for the most part, across, and this is just a generic across-the-board statement, which sometimes will get you in trouble, but it certainly appears that more liberal people prefer nonpartisan elections, whereas conservatives prefer partisan elections. That's just across the research that I found. Any comments to that one?
What do you say about that, Jack?
I would tend to agree. I'm just curious if we've mentioned Paragould. Are there other counties in Arkansas that are having this discussion? Does anybody know that?
I don't know of any. Paragould's a city. I'm not sure. I haven't really heard of any, and I'm not sure. For the most part, city governments. There's various types of city government. A lot of your larger cities have what's called a strong mayor. Some of them have a city manager, where a nonpartisan city council hires a city manager that they literally they go out and solicit resumes and stuff, and they hire a professional to manage the city. Others have what's called a strong mayor. Many places out in California have that, where he's kind of a hybrid between a mayor and a city manager, because he has a whole lot more power than just an average mayor would have. So, there's various types of city governments.
What kind of government do you think we have here in Mountain Home? Any opinions or?
I'm not that close enough to the city here.
Let me answer Jack's question again before I forget my thought. I think that it's eluding me. Jack, what was your question? If you'd remind me.
If we know anything about other parts of Arkansas that are having this discussion.
Thank you. That's just what I needed. I think a lot of citizens and voters and people are not aware that this is even an option. So I think this is an issue that is beginning to trend towards increased partisan elections. I think the more people learn and become aware that this is an option where they can engage in self-determination, which is an incredibly important American value, that they, I think we'll probably see more of it. I think there's a nationwide trend toward partisan elections. Even some judicial elections. I'm not saying I agree with this or disagree, but I found several states, at least 2 or 3, that have switched to partisan judicial elections, for better or for worse. So I think it's a growing trend. I would worry less about a partisan election for a city council than I would for a judge.
Yeah, which is it's kind of a partial definition for transparency, I think.
Right.
So and that's kind of been a big conversation lately all across the board, especially even national government, but locally here too. Transparency's been an issue.
Well, and I think people, I believe, like Matt said, people across this country, let's face it, COVID lockdown changed the dynamics in this country tremendously. And people, and especially now that more and more of the information is coming out that shows that was all BS, and there was no science in the 6-foot rule. There was no science, in taking the vaccine because it wouldn't stop the spread, and all the other things. So people are waking up and saying, wait a minute, what the heck has our government turned into, And invariably, once they start looking at government as a whole, that will eventually trickle down, and they will look at their local government just as well as they will the federal and state governments.
Does anybody see that more people are becoming active locally and attending these government functions, the city?
I can only speak for the quorum court, and it varies. It depends on the topic.
And only if you got an issue, and
That affects you personally.
either the city or the county, those are the people that show up.
Yeah.
Or if you need a zoning change or whatever, it's,
When the airport commission thing was going on back a few months back, when they were talking about disbanding the airport commission, the quorum courtroom was packed. I mean, literally packed. Standing room only. I've been going for 2 years, and I've never seen but a small fraction of that number in that courtroom. It depends on the issue, but if it's a hot button issue that affects you, yeah, I mean, those people are going to get out if it affects them, if they know about it.
Right.
That's the key.
The school board
If
was a
they
big
know
one
about
that,
it. The
that
school board was another
drew a
one.
crowd.
The big thing is, we here in north central Arkansas, not just Baxter County, but north central Arkansas as a whole, are somewhat in a news desert. We have very limited, TV, radio, print media here to get out all of the news, So that being said, a lot of things kind of fly under the radar. People just don't find out about them until, quite frankly, it's almost too late,
Well, maybe they should start watching the Baxter County Roundtable.
Well, that's what we're trying to do, is
Russ,
bring this out.
I've enjoyed and appreciated how you remind people when and where the meetings are and encourage them to attend. It's good for folks just to go and pay attention and see what's going on.
Yes, sir.
And I want to offer this also, perhaps a little bit in defense of nonpartisan elections. Maybe one view is, if it's not broke, why should we try to fix it? This has been going on, and I've never been a fan of saying we do it this way because we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
You don't hear me say that. But government has worked and progressed and gone on in a day-to-day fashion for many years in a nonpartisan thing. So in order for there to be a change, there's going to have to be tangible, realistic, certain or likely benefits, I think, before people go through. And we're not going to even try to talk about what Paragould went through or what's involved with maybe cost and effort and time. I don't know if that's right for Mountain Home at this point, but I think it's good for people to be thinking about it, to know about it, to understand the difference between partisan and nonpartisan. So when they vote, they kind of understand the system they're participating in, and they understand the influencers and the nature of the influence.
Yeah, and if you've grown up under one system and it's the only system you've ever known, then you really don't have anything to compare it to. And going back to what Jack...
Change is hard.
Yes, it is.
Also.
All of us hate change. But going back to what Jack said, you get people aside and you sit down and start talking, especially to the younger people. But I won't even say especially to the younger people.
No.
But the general populace, you talk to them about how the county government, city government, how government works. They're lost. When did we stop teaching civics in school? And I don't know if we still teach it or if they've begun teaching it again, but the thing about it is maybe they taught it, people went through it, slept through it or whatever and just didn't learn. But as a general rule, the average American out here just doesn't understand how their local government or how any of their government actually functions. It amazes me. You watch some of these, TV programs, the interviewers on the street in New York or Chicago or Philadelphia or some of these big cities asking questions. You know, how many states are there? You know, what's the
No.
capital of this or whatever? And it's like the people that, you know, who did the United States fight in the Civil War?
Well, now,
You know?
some of us at this table are older than I am, Russ. And I'm curious, because, you know, I'm kind of under the impression that this is how it's been forever. Young people just aren't that interested. And as you get older and learn the ways of, you know, the real world, you tend to become more interested in politics. I mean,
Well, when you start,
when I was
you
a
know,
young guy, I didn't really give a rat's rear end, but now I'm like immersed in this stuff.
I try to liken this to the young kid that goes out and gets his first paycheck. He's been out there working for a week or 2 weeks, just busting his hump, and he's got his first paycheck. And he knows he's already figured out, you know, at $12 an hour, and he's worked 80 hours, he's already figured out how much he's going to have. And he opens that up and looks at that, and his jaw drops to the floor. He is amazed at, you know, the withholding tax, the state tax, the FICA tax, and all the other stuff taken out. And it's like, wait a minute.
That's when the
what is
education
this?
begins.
And that's where the education begins.
Okay, I have a comment. I think Matt said, if it works, don't fix it. I would ask the voters that listen to this podcast to ask themselves, is what's going on in Mountain Home working? Moving again from Colorado, very progressive state. Denver was a sanctuary city. There's gangs in Aurora. It's really bad. Moving down here, I expected things to be completely different. And what I see, again, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative. What I see in Mountain Home is tax and spend. Sales tax rate was going up when I first started looking down here, and I just see them. I'm not opposed to growth, but there's been talk of somebody wants to make it another Fayetteville. I didn't move here to live in Fayetteville, okay? So I think we need some balance there. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, and I was talking to a gentleman the other day about this very topic. He also came from Colorado. Mm-hmm. I came from California, spent 40 years in California, watched it go from a wonderful place to live. Uncle Sam sent me out there in 1976. I watched it go from a great place to live to what it is now. And it was because people weren't involved at the local level. And just slowly it evolved into what it is now. It wasn't just a overnight, you know, boom, hey, here it is. People woke up finally and said, how did we get here? Well, they got there because it was such a slow, progressive march over the years that they didn't realize.
The people that had an agenda got involved.
Exactly. Now, the thing about it is, going back to what you were saying, yes, we do have some of the higher sales taxes around here, right here in Mountain Home. When you start comparing it to some of the other states around, it is up there. And that's a local level. For a good bit of it is local level. But like the gentleman said to me the other day when I was talking to him, he said, let's face it, life is not really bad here in Mountain Home and Baxter County. And he's got a point. Life's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And how can you tell people that it could be better when they don't have anything else to gauge it against? They've never been anywhere really, or for any extended length of time. So, it's like, well, it's pretty good. Well, what do you think it would do to change it? Well, I don't know,
And if you mention changing the partisan elections or not, they're going to go.
Nonpartisan, they don't care. Because as long as the status quo, as long as you keep it like it is right now, I'm happy.
Yeah. Boy, that's a conversation ender right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mean it to be, because there are, there's always ways of improving things, and I think Jack hit on it right there, in the fact that we don't want to be Fayetteville. We don't want to be Jonesboro. You know, Jonesboro was growing like crazy. Next thing you know, Memphis started infiltrating Jonesboro. Jonesboro's crime rate now is through the roof because a lot of the Memphis crowd moved to Jonesboro.
But would a partisan election fix that?
Probably not,
You know,
Probably
I-
not.
I don't know.
No.
you know, but,
Let
you know,
me suggest how it might. If it increases accountability and
Transparency.
engagement, maybe it could make a difference on any issue.
Yeah, because
You know?
you're going to pull more people in that normally would sit out if they know who how they're
This
affiliated.
is my Republican, this is my Democrat, this is
Yeah.
my guy or my girl, so I'm
Yeah.
going to go and vote for him.
Yeah. I think there's some.
But
well, and, you know, correlation is not necessarily always directly proportional or causation, but the simple fact that the top 30 cities in the United States by population, or almost every one of them are run by liberal Democrats, okay? 22 out of them hold partisan elections. Yet the vast majority of them are Democrat-run cities. So, yeah, I think maybe you might be right. You know, it could have an influence. You know, and this is where, going back to what we were saying, like you were saying, transparency. If you're paying attention, you go to the city council, you go to the school board meetings, you go to the quorum court meetings, and you're watching what's taking place, and you ask questions, and you say, wait a minute, why do we need to raise our sales tax another 0.5% for whatever? Why do we need to do that? Make your voices known, because eventually, if enough people pack those courtrooms or chambers, people are going to listen.
Okay.
But if you're not going, then it, just like California or Colorado or many of these other places, whether it's a nonpartisan or partisan election, is going to be immaterial because they're just going to do what they want because nobody's watching.
That's right.
So I've got a question for Russ. I know you live in the county, and I don't think we have to tell people in the county that what happens in the city of Mountain Home affects them. But how does, we said this is a local municipal concept for nonpartisan versus partisan.
Right.
Okay. How do their decisions at city council, for example, affect you in the county?
Every time I come to town, I have to abide by everything that you do as a resident within the city limits. I have to pay the same sales tax and do everything else just like you do.
You have to
Okay?
pay, the
Yep.
schools are nonpartisan, and we are subject to that as
Yep.
well. So the millage and,
But I'll tell you, the county does not get a chance to vote on city matters, even though city matters, especially sales tax, impacts every single one of
That's right.
us. When they passed the water park in a special election with only around 1,700 people voting total, okay? That was a city election. Yet the county, there's 42,000 people in the county. Almost 44,000, actually about 44,000 during the day, because the county actually sees an influx of approximately 3,000 people during the day for people come to work here, okay? There's only around 13,000 in Mountain Home. So, for the most part, the people in the county are paying for the water park and all the other things that the city is voting on when they raise sales tax.
yeah, and on that matter, I mean, that's not what we're here for today, but I would argue that that's not proper use of tax dollars. The government of any local, I don't think, should be taking care of our entertainment and deciding what it's gonna be.
For what it's worth, gentlemen, I will tell you that there's no shortage of realtors in Mountain Home that will sell you a residence inside the city if y'all want to move in and vote or even run for office.
Could I have several of them's name and
Just
phone
saying.
number?
Just saying.
I understand.
No, I
So,
like,
but I understand that. I understand the frustrations there that maybe you own property in the city, but you live in the county.
well, actually, that brings up another whole point. If you live in the county, but you own a business in Mountain Home, you still don't get to vote in
That's
city
correct.
matters.
You only get to vote one place.
It's based on your residence, so people can have 20 different businesses here, live in the county, come in, run their 20 different businesses, it employs 10,000 people or whatever, and they still don't get a vote on anything.
I don't know if there's a way to resolve that.
No,
but-
I don't
Gentlemen,
either.
you can rest assured that anyone with 20 businesses can have their dollars do the talking for them, and they can influence and support the candidate of their choice. Even though they can only vote once, they can support them financially to great effect, I would think.
Yeah,
Just say it.
I agree with that. I agree with
That's
that.
the political scientist. in me.
That's good, that's a good
And-
point.
And the practical fellow.
Yeah,
you know.
that makes sense. That's a good point. All right,
Well, I'd like to, before we close out tonight, and I think we're getting toward the end, I wanted to make a real quick announcement that, don't forget, the Baxter County Fair is coming up. We will have a booth at the main exhibit hall. It's the first one you come in, and, you'll be able to register to vote if you or your children, any of them, just turned 18. If y'all need to register to vote, we'll have voter registration forms there and people to help you register to vote. We'll have prizes there. We're going to have different various drawings. We'll have some very good informative handouts for you, and you'll be able to meet your local county elected officials. Many of them have already signed up, said, yeah, they'll come down there and man the booth and get out and meet the public. So,
okay.
glad to have them.
Well, on the partisan versus nonpartisan matter, Jack, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't.
Matt?
Very briefly, just for comparison purposes, the quorum court with the justice of the peace is kind of the legislative governing body of the county, just as the city council is the legislative governing body of the city. And it's just an interesting comparison and contrast to note that we have partisan elections for the county legislative body,
Right.
but we have nonpartisan for the city.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to offer reasons or answers, but it's just a food for thought. It's just a good question for folks to think about and kind of say, why is that?
Interesting dichotomy, huh?
Yeah. Well, Matt Stone, thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Jack Randall, we appreciate you showing up. Russ, thank you, and everybody behind the scenes. A couple little announcements, which I'm going to need help with. If you wanna get involved in politics and make a difference, one of the things you might do is consider joining the Baxter County Republican Committee. And the Baxter County Republican Committee meets last Tuesday each month at the VFW at 6 p.m.
That'll be next week.
Yep, a week from tomorrow. And it can be fun, and you can learn a lot. And you might even get a burger and a pop there if you show
Yeah,
up
might.
at the VFW.
Might.
Depends on the food thing arrangement. City Council, do you know when that meets?
First and third Tuesday, I believe it is. Quorum
First,
court, first Thursday.
Quorum Court's on a Monday, isn't it?
No.
Or is it on Thursday?
Or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday,
Quorum
first
Court's
Tuesday.
first Tuesday each
First
month.
Tuesday,
And
yeah.
that's at the courthouse.
Courthouse,
Second floor. And at
5:30 now, I believe.
5:30.
5:30.
And I don't know, does anybody know when the school board is? We'll have that next.
You can just go on board, go on the school board's website. They actually do post them up there every time before the,
And you can, I think some of these you can watch online.
yes, you
if
can. You
can't
can
make
watch all of them,
all of them.
all of them.
I bet we'll have those school board times at the next podcast. We'll
Yeah,
have those.
we will have that.
Well, they were having, over the summer, they were having the facilities planning meetings, like every 2 weeks or whatever. Since they're now gone back to the, regular school cycle, I haven't gotten notification on when the next one's gonna be, but yeah, as soon as we get them, we'll promulgate those.
Yeah, and if you show up at some of these meetings, you don't have to say or do anything. You can just sit there and take it in, and that's a good starting point for learning how your government works.
It's educational.
And
sure.
I if you go to enough of these, I think you'll find yourself going, excuse me, I have something to say here,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
by all rights, you should
And
be
they
allowed
should.
to. And
We
I
have a fantastic Mountain Home city clerk, the elected clerk, Scott Lyles.
Yep.
yes,
Very responsive, very open to having questions asked and providing FOIA documents. I encourage people to reach out to my friend Scott Lyles, the Mountain Home city clerk, with any questions about city government issues.
Yep,
and actually, if you can find the Baxter County Republican Committee Facebook page, you can reach out there, and somebody will get you the information you need, more than likely.
yeah, just do a search on, Facebook for Baxter County Republican Committee, and it pops right up.
All right, so that being said, I think we've come to the end of our program, and
One other announcement. I think you've seen on the ticker on our new software program going across the bottom of the screen. But next week's broadcast will be live from the Hardy Civic Center in Hardy, from the Sharp and Izard County Republican Lincoln Day Dinner, featuring Senator Tom Cotton as the featured speaker. And we hope to be able to do a short interview with Senator Cotton. I believe several other elected representatives, both state and potentially federal, may be there. So we will try to bring you as many of them, interview with as many of them as possible.
and
That's
I
next
think
week.
we've also got some potential big hitters coming to this podcast.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that, and we'll get that information to you as soon as possible. And anybody else have anything to add?
Gentlemen, on a personal note, if I may make use of this platform, I'd like to offer my sincere condolences to the family of James Gadberry and Amanda Dickerson. These are the two folks who passed in the horrible wreck between Gassville and Mountain Home. I've just learned that my friend James Gadberry passed today, and I was crushed to hear that. I knew them both. I think within recent years they've given their lives to the Lord, so I'm thankful for that. But I just want to say a special word of love and support and shalom to all of their friends and family.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a GoFundMe, by the way, on Facebook. I encourage you to check it out. I've donated to it, and I hope you will as well, to help with funeral expenses. So thank you for letting me share about this tragic loss.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for participating in this, and thanks for everybody behind the camera. And we're going to say, hope to see you next week, same place, same time. Thanks a lot.
Sayonara.
Is